Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper. Uncover hidden histories, lost artifacts, and ancient mysteries. Join us as we explore the past secrets. Subscribe and dive into history's untold stories. For centuries, our history books told us a simple story. Humans learned to farm, then they built villages, and finally, they created complex religion and great monuments. But hidden beneath the Turkish hilltop lies a discovery that challenges everything we thought we knew. This is Göbekli Tepe, an ancient temple so old it could rewrite the very first chapter of human civilization. For most of what we call human history, the story seemed settled, written in stone and soil, taught in every classroom. It was a clear, logical progression. First, our ancestors learned to tame the wild, to plant seeds and harvest crops. This was the agricultural revolution, the great turning point that allowed us to stop wandering and build permanent homes. From these small villages, cities grew. With a stable food supply, we had time to think, to create, to specialize. Society became complex, hierarchies formed, and only then, after all that, did we have the resources and the organization to build great monuments and develop complex, organized religion. It was a neat, linear path from hunter to farmer to builder. It made sense. It felt right. And for decades, it was the unquestioned foundation of our own story. But then, a discovery was made on a lonely, windswept hilltop in southern Turkey, a place that would not just add a new chapter to our history, but force us to tear out the first pages and start again. This place is called Göbekli Tepe, and the first and most staggering thing you need to know about it is its age. The stone circles of Göbekli Tepe are not just old, they are impossibly, mind-bendingly old. Scientific dating, using methods that analyze the organic material left behind by its builders, places the site's construction at around 12,000 years ago. Let that number sink in for a moment. 12,000 years. It's a span of time so vast that it's almost impossible for our minds to grasp. We tend to think of ancient history in terms of a few familiar landmarks, the great empires and towering structures that are our world. But Göbekli Tepe makes a mockery of our timeline. It laughs at what we used to call ancient. To give this age some real perspective, let's consider the Great Pyramids of Giza in Egypt. They are perhaps the most iconic symbol of ancient human achievement, a testament to a powerful civilization with pharaohs, complex mathematics, written language in the form of hieroglyphs, and the use of bronze tools. They stand as a silent, powerful monument to a sophisticated past. The pyramids were built around 4,500 years ago. This means that Göbekli Tepe is more than twice as old as the pyramids. When the first stone was laid at Giza, Göbekli Tepe had already been standing for over 7 millennia, a forgotten ruin from a world so distant it might as well have been another planet. The people of Göbekli Tepe lived, worshipped, and built their world in a time when the Egyptian civilization was still thousands of years in the future. Let's travel closer to our own time, to the misty plains of England, and look at Stonehenge. Its giant, enigmatic stones, aligned with the solstices, have captured our imagination for centuries. They speak of a mysterious culture of early farmers, of druids and ancient rituals. Stonehenge is roughly 5,000 years old. This means that Göbekli Tepe is older than Stonehenge by a staggering 6,000 to 7,000 years. The time gap between us today and the construction of the Roman Colosseum is less than the time gap between the building of Stonehenge and the era of Göbekli Tepe. An entire epoch of human history, one that saw the rise and fall of countless cultures, fits comfortably in the space between these two ancient sites. The first writing in Mesopotamia, the dawn of Greek philosophy, the founding of Rome, all of these monumental events in human history are, in the grand scheme of things, recent developments compared to the silent, stone sentinels of Göbekli Tepe. This structure doesn't just predate our known history. It comes from a time before history, as we know it, was even supposed to have begun. And that brings us to the most profound part of the enigma. Who were these master builders? Who were the people who possessed the vision and the skill to create such a monument 12,000 years ago? The answer is what makes Göbekli Tepe not just a mystery, but a paradox. The builders were hunter-gatherers. This was the Stone Age, a period we have always associated with a simple, nomadic existence. The common image of our Stone Age ancestors is one of small, family-based bands, constantly on the move, following the great herds of wild animals like gazelle and aurochs. They were people whose lives were dictated by the seasons and the relentless, daily search for food. They lived in temporary shelters, perhaps caves or simple huts made from branches and animal hides. Their world was one of survival, a hand-to-mouth existence where the primary concerns were finding the next meal, staying warm, and protecting themselves from predators. This image of primitive survival is completely at odds with the reality of Göbekli Tepe. It was a society that was not supposed to exist. Hunter-gatherers, according to the old model of history, did not have the time, the resources, or the social structure to undertake massive, long-term construction projects. They were not supposed to be capable of the complex planning, the organized labor, and the shared vision necessary to build on this monumental scale. Building something like Göbekli Tepe would have required hundreds, if not thousands, of people working together for extended periods. It would have required a leadership structure to direct the work and a system to feed and house the laborers. All of this points to a level of social complexity that archaeologists believed only emerged thousands of years later, after the invention of agriculture. Göbekli Tepe stands in direct contradiction to this long-held belief. It presents us with a structure that, by all the rules of history we once held dear, simply should not exist. The people who built it, these supposed simple nomads, have left behind a monument that challenges the very definition of what it meant to be human at the dawn of civilization. The sheer existence of Göbekli Tepe is a riddle that rewrites our past, but the mystery only deepens when we move from the what to the why. If this monumental complex wasn't a city or a village, what was it for? Why would nomadic hunter-gatherers, people whose lives were defined by constant movement and the search for sustenance, pour such incredible effort into building this sprawling, sophisticated site? The answer, according to the lead archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who dedicated his life to uncovering its secrets, is as profound as it is revolutionary. He famously said, "First came the temple, then the city." He believed that Göbekli Tepe was not a place for living, but a place for worship. It was, quite possibly, the world's very first temple. This idea flips our understanding of civilization on its head. For generations, we believed that complex religion was a luxury, a cultural development that could only arise after society had a stable food source through farming. But Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite. It hints that it was the need to come together for shared rituals, for a collective belief, that was the true spark for civilization. It was the powerful pull of this sacred hill that may have encouraged people to settle down, to figure out how to cultivate crops and domesticate animals, simply so they could stay close to this holy place. The desire to worship, to connect with the cosmos and the spirit world, might not have been a byproduct of civilization, it might have been its very cause. The evidence for this lies in the stones themselves. The massive T-shaped pillars, arranged in circles, are not blank canvases. They are covered in a mysterious and intricate gallery of carvings, a silent language from a lost world. But what's fascinating is what these carvings depict. They are teeming with animals, slithering snakes, cunning foxes, dangerous-looking wild boars, scorpions with their tails poised to strike, and, most prominently, vultures. What's strange is that these were not the primary animals that the people of Göbekli Tepe hunted for food. The bones found at the site show that their main diet consisted of gazelle and other game. So, if these carved animals weren't on the menu, what did they represent? They must have been part of a symbolic, spiritual world, a complex mythology that we are only just beginning to decipher. These symbols are not random doodles. They seem to tell a story. The T-shaped pillars themselves are believed to be stylized representations of human figures, with arms carved along their sides and hands gesturing towards their waists. They are not gods, but perhaps revered ancestors or powerful spirit beings, standing watch in their sacred circle. The animals that surround them could be guardians, spirit guides, or symbols of different tribes who gathered here. The sheer number of foxes, for instance, might point to a fox clan, or a mythology centered around this clever creature. The snakes could represent the underworld or a connection to the earth. But it is the vultures that have sparked one of the most compelling and chilling theories. In many ancient cultures across the world, vultures were not seen as mere scavengers, but as psychopomp creatures that carried the souls of the dead to the heavens. This has led some researchers to believe that Göbekli Tepe was a center for a death cult, or more accurately, a place for complex funerary rituals. The practice, known as excarnation, involves leaving the deceased exposed for birds of prey to strip the flesh from the bones. The clean bones would then be collected and buried. A headless human figure found carved beneath a vulture on one of the pillars seems to lend powerful support to this theory. This wasn't just a place to pray. It may have been a final resting place, a gateway between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits, where the vultures served as the sacred messengers. It was a place where people from miles around could bring their dead, to ensure their safe passage to the afterlife, overseen by the silent, stone ancestors. For thousands of years, Göbekli Tepe served as this sacred center. Different circles were built, each one a little smaller and a little less refined than the last, suggesting a culture that was changing, perhaps even declining, over millennia. It was a beacon of belief in a world without cities or kings. But then, as if the story wasn't strange enough, its creators did something that defies all logic. They buried it. This is perhaps the greatest and most profound mystery of all. Around 8000 BCE, after centuries of use, the people who had poured generations of labor and faith into building this sacred complex began the painstaking process of deliberately and completely burying it under tons of earth, rock, and animal bones. This was not a slow process of natural decay or a sudden collapse. The evidence shows it was an intentional act of backfilling. They filled every inch of the stone circles, carefully covering their sacred pillars and intricate carvings, entombing their entire temple beneath a man-made hill.
Why?
Why would a culture destroy, or at least hide, the very thing that defined them? This final act has left archaeologists and historians with a puzzle locked in stone, and there are no easy answers. One theory suggests that the act of burial was itself a final, grand ritual. Perhaps in their belief system, the temple had a life cycle. It was born, it lived, and then it had to be ceremonially put to sleep, or returned to the earth from which it came. Burying it may have been the highest form of respect, a way of deactivating its immense power and laying it to rest. Another, more dramatic theory points to a potential catastrophe. Some researchers have linked the timeline of Göbekli Tepe's burial to the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a theory that a comet struck the Earth around this time, causing a rapid climate shift and widespread devastation. One of the pillars at Göbekli Tepe, known as the Vulture Stone, is covered in symbols that some interpret as an astronomical map, depicting this very cataclysmic event. Could it be that the survivors buried their temple as a time capsule, a warning, or a memorial to a world that had been lost? A third possibility is a cultural or religious revolution. Perhaps a new belief system swept through the region, one that viewed the old gods and rituals of Göbekli Tepe as heretical or forbidden. The old ways had to be eradicated, and the most powerful way to do that would be to literally bury the old temple, erasing it from the landscape and from memory. It's a pattern we see throughout human history. New faiths often seek to demolish or build over the sacred sites of the old ones. But in this case, they didn't demolish it, they preserved it. It's as if they couldn't bring themselves to destroy it completely, choosing instead to hide it away, leaving it perfectly intact for a distant future generation to find. Whatever the reason, this final, bizarre act is what saved Göbekli Tepe for us. By burying their creation, its builders protected it from thousands of years of erosion, war, and human interference. They created the perfect archaeological time capsule. But they also left us with a silent, haunting question. What did they know? What event, what belief, what profound shift in human consciousness could compel them to abandon their masterpiece and hide it from the world? The enigma of Göbekli Tepe is not just in its ancient stones or its impossible timeline. It lies in this final, deliberate act of disappearance, a quiet reminder that the deepest secrets of our history are not always lost to time, but sometimes they are intentionally hidden. Göbekli Tepe is more than just an ancient ruin. It's a historical enigma that forces us to ask new questions. It suggests that a shared belief, a powerful idea, may have been the true spark for civilization, not farming. Why its creators buried their masterpiece remains a profound mystery, a quiet reminder that our planet still holds ancient secrets we have only just begun to uncover. Thanks for exploring with Ancient Relics Keeper. What mystery should we unravel next? Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Let's keep digging into history's secrets together.